Yo, yo, what is up, everybody? Happy Tuesday afternoon, a beautiful day. Another day of the offseason for the 76ers, but there are four teams remaining. And today, wanted to switch it up just a little bit, right? There's not much going on in Sixer world. We're trying to come together and talk about potential free agents and the draft. And we have a lot of time to do that. But I also want to look at the teams that are left and kind of translate that to the Sixers. Like, what can they learn from some of these teams making the conference finals and how they got there and all that stuff? And we're also going to go through and predict the final two matchups: Celtics, Pacers, and Timberwolves and Mavericks. So a little bit of a distant territory, but we're going to have fun with this one today. And we are bringing on a special guest, my guy, who is the number one Celtics fan that I honestly know. So I'm really intrigued and interested to hear what he has to say about this potential matchup and just kind of get into it with him, maybe get under his skin a little bit. But Jack Cote, welcome to the show, my man. Thank you for finally hopping on. Glad we got to do this.
I appreciate you. I'm very excited to talk to you because you bring up, maybe a team, teaching y'all and learning things, right? You guys learning things from a team like the Celtics who find a way to the Eastern Conference Finals for 3 straight years. And I'm going to kick it off with just saying it's about greatness. Sometimes you got to learn greatness. And the good part about that is that Tyrese Maxey could be greatness. And Joel Embiid, the two of them, I mean, it's not like y'all are the Atlanta Hawks. It's not like y'all are about to trade away your star. No, you got the core, build the pieces around it. I'm glad that you've let me on this show because it's playoff basketball. It's really heating up now. Celtics, Pacers, and I'm excited to talk about that, but also shining light on your Sixers.
We have to, man. We have to. And to your point about greatness, I do believe Tyrese Maxey is going to be great. I think he already is great, and he showed a lot of flashes of that in the playoffs. Unfortunately, went down the way that it did, but the New York Knicks end up getting eliminated, and that leaves your Boston Celtics up against the Indiana Pacers. So I'm really interested to hear your opinion on that. I think I already know which way you're going to go, but I want to start off talking about the playoffs in general. Like, how do you view these playoffs so far? As a Celtics fan, you guys have pretty much cruised through. I have my own opinions on that, but where do you think the Celtics are at right now? Because you have people saying, they're struggling. They're not really playing much competition. Then you have people saying, well, it's just one of those years where everybody's getting injured. You have all the new blood in here. Like, have the playoffs been exciting as a Celtics fan so far?
No, I mean, I think you want to have the toughest competition, if anything. But I remember 2 years ago, we started it off. We had to play Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets. Then you got to go up against Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Bucks had just won a championship. Then you get the one. I forget what seed they were at the time. They might have been the 1 seed, the Miami Heat, coming off beating you guys, right? So that was a difficult win for them. And 2 years ago, we played every single best opponent that we possibly could. And this year, it's been different. But we've also had the understanding of who we are. We know the team that we are. It's not like we need experience. When you talk about like the Celtics haven't been battle tested yet, right? I hear that all the time right now. Fella, they've been to the conference finals the last 2 years. They went to the NBA finals. They lost. They were up 2-1. They've been down 3-2 multiple times against Milwaukee, against the Sixers. They have been battle tested over the course of the 3 years. Maybe it's not the same exact team, but it starts with Tatum, Brown, and Derek White. Throw them in there. They've all been there. Al Horford's been there. Every guy is going to be more prepared and battle tested, if that's what you want to say. So it has been disappointing that we haven't gotten to play a healthy Jimmy Butler Miami Heat team. That would have been electric. We all know that. I would have wanted to play the Sixers healthy. I wish y'all were here, but I wish the Knicks were here. Like, I wish anybody but the 6 seed Pacers. Heading into the playoffs, 2 weeks heading into it, I'm like, we might play the Pacers in round 1 if something floats that way. Like if the Pacers and Sixers swapped, right? Y'all were fighting for that 6 seed. This changes things. But more importantly, if you get that 6 seed, the Pacers get the 7 seed, Miami beats the Pacers in a 7-8 matchup. We're playing the Pacers in round. This is a round 1 matchup in the conference finals. So that's my opinion. I'm excited for the NBA finals, RB.
So you're already looking past the conference finals. We will get back to that, I promise. Like I said, we're just mixing it up today, talking about the NBA, what's going on, because I do think there is some potential for these series to end up pretty good. Maybe one more than the other, but we'll talk about that. I want to just transition to the Sixers, though, so we can get them out of the way, because there was a rumor that came out today, some reports linking Malik Monk as a potential free agent target. There is all kinds of noise around the Sixers. Not sure how much you know, but essentially they're going to have 2 or 3 players on the roster. So they have the full flexibility to build out the entire team. This is the first time under the Daryl Morey tenure. And I know he gets a lot of heat for trading for James Harden and not getting Halliburton and all these other things. But he didn't sign the Ben Simmons contract. He didn't sign the Tobias Harris contract. He got rid of the Al Horford contract. This is the first time they have full flexibility. There is no excuse. You're going to have $60 million in cap space. So whether it's Jimmy Butler or Paul George, I want to know from the outsider perspective, you as a Celtics fan, seeing what your team did, especially this last year, fleece of a trade to get Porzingis, get Drew Holiday. Now you're in the conference finals again. As an outsider, what do you think the Sixers need to do? Where are they at in your mind? Do they get a 3rd star, or do they just get a lot of those rock solid depth pieces this offseason?
Well, I think if you look back at Denver and you look at the Celtics right now, the way they've been built, they obviously drafted 2 guys, right? You draft Tyrese Maxey, you draft Joel Embiid. Those are the 2 guys the Sixers have drafted. We had Tatum and Brown. Those were our 2 draft picks. But you build around it, and it doesn't necessarily mean you got to go get a Paul George. That would be great. But it also could mean, get a role player, right? And what I mean by that is you can have a star role player. Like Derek White is probably the greatest role player of all role players. Drew Holiday, you as the Philadelphia 76ers now have the flexibility, in my opinion. I saw a video, so I'm not fully caught up on what y'all are doing, but what I saw a video of what you made, which was like basically get rid of everybody. You kept like 3 guys, right? Basically get rid of the whole team, restart everything. You keep Max. In simple terms, you're keeping Maxey and you're keeping Embiid, and everybody else is gone. Maybe there's a couple of other guys that are staying on that roster, but if I'm the Sixers, I'm totally cool with that. You just got to build it the right way, and you got to trust the front office to do what they do best. And if you're the 76ers, if I'm looking from the outside in, they have the ability to build around that. That's a hell of a duo to build around too. All you got to do is get the 2 players correct.
Absolutely. And for once, they have, 5 tradable firsts. They have $60 million in cap space. And, there are certain players like a Kelly Oubre that I would welcome back, a Nicholas Batum on a minimum. But I think where Sixer fans are at is the breaking point. Like, it is literally now or never. You have all the flexibility in the world to build a contender, and this team has not been built good at all. Tobias Harris, Ben Simmons, PJ Tucker, like they have just continuously handed out bad contracts. And that's why I'm ready to shed everybody and say, maybe pick up a couple young guys in the draft, or find a couple of those gems, right? Find the Aaron Gordon trade or the Derek White trade this offseason. There's going to be a lot of players that move around with the new CBA, and you need to find like 2 or 3 of those gems that just complement Embiid and Maxey. I don't think I'm ready to give out a $50 million contract. Would I take Jimmy Butler? Yes, but it comes with a lot of implications. Would I take Kevin Durant if he ever became available? Absolutely. But it comes with a lot of implications. And I don't think you could build out a team like that anymore, because you need those gem role pieces.
I guess I didn't really answer your question of like who you would want or who the Sixers should try and go after, but I'm thinking about it.
My question is like, what direction do you think the Sixers should go? Because again, you're Celtics.
Embiid and Maxey, and you build around that, and you get good role players that you trust, that you believe you can either develop over the like Derek White was pretty much developed because he was under Pop, but he became such a great player because he was surrounded by better players in Tatum and Brown, right? So guys are just going to develop around Maxey and Embiid and just be better. They should. Well, Tobias Harris wasn't, but I don't want to be mean to Tobias Harris.
Oh
He
no,
gets an
trust
update.
me. This is
But I was sitting in his
box
box seat a year ago and sitting right next to his sister. I've told you this story many times. I can't be mean to Tobias Harris because I probably gave that family too much shit during that game 4, and then we ended up losing.
Listen, 0 points in an elimination game. He scores 4 points, we win. I mean, that's all that needs to be said. It would just, and I told you all season, Tobias Harris was going to be the Achilles heel. I think I said those exact words to you, and man,
RB, it just hit me. Yeah, y'all got to get Jimmy Butler. Holy shit. You got to get Jimmy Butler. You know why? Because we never got to see the full potential of that. And I think they were trying for so long, but I have tears in my eyes right now because as a Celtics fan, if the Philadelphia 76ers get the kryptonite of the Boston Celtics, that is a scary sight. Embiid, Butler, and now Maxey instead of Ben Simmons / James Harden, that's the missing piece. Or I don't buy the Paul George one. I think he wants to stay in LA, right?
Yeah.
Who do you think?
Sure.
I like Jimmy.
I think Daryl Morey's going star hunting. I think he's going home run swinging here, but I agree with you when it comes to Jimmy. If there was any guy out of the group, I would take Jimmy, but it would be a 76ers thing now that he's turning 35 to go give him a 4-year max extension. Right. And then he only plays 50 games a year, right? And he's
championship hunting at this point.
I agree.
Is if you're Jimmy Butler, if I'm Jimmy Butler, I don't want to be the one-man show. Bam Adebayo is great. Don't get me wrong. But Jimmy Butler has to carry the load when he's in the game and when he's doing a champion. Miami's not winning a championship with that squad. And they didn't get Damian Lillard. They didn't do what Jimmy wanted. Now Jimmy's pissed off. Now he's talking crap online. Now Pat Riley doesn't like him. Jimmy Butler's gone. Where does he go? Back to the 76ers to fulfill that dream, to trust the process after all, right?
That would feed families. That would feed families. Unfinished business. Jimmy Butler comes back, and they finally get to the conference finals.
Who's the one-man show on that?
Who's
the number one on that team? Maxey, Embiid, or Jimmy Butler?
I think it could be all three of them at different points, and I think that's what the Sixers need. They need to stop letting Joel Embiid run an Embiid-centric offense 90% of the season. We saw in this playoffs, Maxey can take that leap. Maxey can have those games where maybe Joel slides into the backseat a little bit. Maybe there's games, and this is how you prevent Jimmy Butler from getting injured and only playing 40 games in a season, right? You got Joel, you got Butler, Maxey. It makes perfect sense from a basketball standpoint, but I am worried about the durability now. And I don't know if I want to give him a 4-year max. It's frustrating. It's frustrating.
You either go all in on Joel Embiid, which means you have to bring in veteran presence because you have to trust that Embiid and Maxey can take you far enough. Build the pieces around it. You got to then go veteran presence, guys. Because what do we always say when it gets down to what was I saying this year? And I was dead wrong about it. And we're in this new era. But the take of the day is LeBron, KD, Steph. They were the 7, 9, and 10 seed, and we all thought they had a chance. Why? Because they're the veteran guys that we've seen do it before. We have seen Jimmy Butler carry a good team, a decent team. Wasn't great. That Heat team was solid. We lost to them, but they weren't like a phenomenal team. They weren't a super team, right? If you get Jimmy Butler surrounded by Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, who are probably two of the more hungry players in basketball, I mean, I'm telling you right now, that Celtics Sixers series feeds families. That's intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all got a chance against us. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, we should have closed you out last year. We were right there, and we just we again gave up
Jason
the
Tatum.
opportunity. And man, it is frustrating. So we're gonna move on. We will read some of the comments out in the chat. Once again, appreciate everybody being in here. Know it's a little bit of a different type of show, but happy to get on here, talk some playoffs. Before we get completely past the Sixers stuff, I want your outside opinion on Joel Embiid because the amount of people that I've been debating with, discussing with, the insane Knicks fans, everybody, right? And we just saw the Nuggets choke a game 6 and 7, which is a completely different story. I know you've backed Embiid before, but after these playoffs, right? The guy goes out, drops 39 in an elimination game. They said he couldn't play in elimination games. They said he was a choker, this and that. We just talked about all the reasons that he can't get past the second round, in my opinion, because they never gave him the right supporting cast. And people say I'm just, an excuse maker for Embiid. But where do you think Joel is at? How do you feel about him, his future, and how he stacks up in the NBA?
I mean, you just gotta capitalize on his prime, you know? You just gotta this is gonna be the best 30-year stretch of his career. Like, he's past this MVP stage, and I don't think he was ever at an MVP stage. I think Joel Embiid is somebody that truly wants to win and just has not been surrounded with the right players. And you gotta hope, you gotta pray that he can lead you to a championship, right? In terms of, dude, all he wants is to win, right? We all know this. You get this late in you get 7, 8 years in, all you want to do is just get that ring. So he'll do whatever it takes. So I'm from the outside looking in, and I'm saying Joel Embiid's the best center in basketball. He's the most dominant center in basketball. And if you give him a guy like Tyrese Maxey who can take a 30-footer ice cold water with the season on the line, and then you can bring in a stone cold killer in Jimmy Butler, or a Paul George, or just surround the team with good pieces, winning mentality. You can take, like, look at Denver right now. They have Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. They choked, right? But if they didn't choke, we'd be talking about how Denver has the recipe, which is these two players, and then you surround them with great role players. Aaron Gordon was never meant to be a 1 or a 2. He was always meant to be Jokic's kind of like, big man, the wingman, big man. But man, I love Joel Embiid, and I really hope he gets it done one day. But respectfully, the only way might be to get Jimmy Butler because he's the Celtics kryptonite, and that's the only way you're beating the Celtics if you get Jimmy Butler.
If the Sixers had an Aaron Gordon, which I said all season long, I think they'd be in the finals.
Right, to help to take a little bit of the pressure and load off of a off of a Joel Embiid.
Exactly.
100%.
He has never had a good power forward next to him. So, people say I make excuses for Embiid. All I'm highlighting is that they have signed bad contract after bad contract. Joel Embiid has played with either Tobias or Ben his entire career. He's never played without them other than 30 games in his rookie season. If he had a guy like Gordon who takes a lot of that pressure off of Jokic,
right,
we would be talking about a different story right now. But I like your comparison because I think the Sixers have those building blocks in place. They have Embiid and Maxey. And like you said, now it's the supporting cast. And this is the final chance. Like, you have all the flexibility in the world. Every guy on the team is a free agent. So you can pick which players you want, whether that's via trade, free agency. If they don't come out of this offseason with a contender going into next year, then I think I'm off the ship of this front office. There is no excuses right now. You have all the leverage in the world to get players in here that can compete.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully next year we'll be talking about Sixers and maybe Celtics in the conference finals.
Yeah. And a lot of times they know more than we do. And they research these guys to the max and see them in practice the way we don't. And, so you got to just trust the front office to make the right decisions to get the right guys. But it's a lot of pressure.
As a Philly fan. It's hard as a Philly fan because they don't give us reasons to trust.
No, I wouldn't either. I mean, who the hell are you going to go after? We're talking about Jimmy Butler, Paul George. I mean, I like a guy like, what if you put together a trade package with like the Bulls or something?
For Caruso?
Yeah, I'm thinking Caruso would be a great guy to kind of like
Be a dog.
wingman Maxi and play defense. That would be a tough backcourt.
Absolutely. And you know who else I'd throw in there? Drummond as well as a backup.
To give us half the Bulls team. I'm talking us like I'm a Sixers fan. Holy shit.
Well, apparently the chat thinks you're a New York fan undercover because of your shirt right there.
No, no.
Yeah, he was a
The
New York
truth is,
fan.
I just wear these because sometimes I go to Yankees games and I just try and fit in.
And he is in New York, and I'm sure you experienced the heartbreak and frustration of the Knicks.
No,
Who
it's
got
so
upset.
funny to walk around the streets and they're
Oh,
literally just like a bunch of like dudes that are just done.
listen, man, the amount of Knicks fans that are still in my comments. I'll put out a tweet about the Celtics and Pacers series. Knicks fans flooding the comments. They have become the most salty fan base I've ever seen. And I just laugh at this point. I just sit back and laugh. They're giving their guys ovations at the end of a second round exit. I mean, it is what it is, man. But time to talk about the playoffs. And that's why I brought you on here, because you have some stock right now. I don't have a horse in the race. I'm just sitting back enjoying the playoffs, watching. But we'll start with Celtics and Pacers. How do you feel about the Celtics in this series? How many games will it go? Is there any shot that the Pacers make this competitive?
They're good enough to shoot 70% in a given night and win a game because nothing can stop that. Maybe the Celtics can stop that. If I were to predict every single game in this series, I would say we're going to win game 1 by 20 plus points, maybe 50 points. Who the hell knows? But we're winning this game by a lot tonight. Not to exaggerate. Game 2. Game 2 is the game where everyone's going to overreact about we have lost both game 2s at home. So we're going to lose this one at home. And what are the Celtics going to do? They have a motive. They have a storyline to go say, all right, let's go win game 2. Let's not be so backs against the wall in game 3 and game 4, right? So you win game 2 because we all know what happened last year. We dropped the first 3 games of the Eastern Conference Finals to the 8th seed. Don't do it again. Do not lose tonight. And more importantly, do not drop game 2. If you drop game 2, don't overreact though, because then we probably win 3 straight. Game 1, win. Game 2, win. Game 3, we're better on the road. We're better on the road. Why? Because what did Tom Brady always used to say? Tom Brady always used to say that he would find one little thing to create a little motivation to be like, I'm going to go kill that. I'm going to go destroy this team. Like one little motivation, one little tweet, a comment, anything. And so when you're on the road, the Celtics feel like they can prove how good of a team they are. And sometimes this Celtics team, you just don't know. Sometimes they're out to lunch. That's what my grandpa would say when I was playing basketball and he was coaching me. What the hell are you doing? You're out to lunch, right? Sometimes they're out to lunch. I think in the Eastern Conference Finals, you lock in, you win game 3, you take a commanding lead, you get up 3-0. Game 4 is the one where I say you could lose, and then you get it back home to Boston and you give the fans what they want, which is, winning the Eastern Conference Finals on our home court, and you're giving us a little bit of momentum heading into the NBA Finals, because this easy path, you just don't know. The NBA Finals is going to be a different competition. So they're going to be ready for it, but I expect us to win this series in, respectfully, 5 games.
I'm going to take Boston in 6, and it does pain me to say how consistent they have been. However, they still haven't won a championship with the current core. And I would go as far to say as this is the year where the most pressure lies with Boston. At the beginning of the playoffs all season, I thought it would be Denver and Boston. And Denver choked. They're out of it. The Celtics, quite frankly, have never had this easy of a run to the NBA Finals. And I think you would agree with that. I mean,
it's the easiest run in NBA history for a 1 seed, but it's well deserved because you go 64-18 for a reason.
Exactly. You got the number 1 seed, but the Heat without Butler, the Cavs without Mitchell the last couple, and then the Indiana Pacers. Celtics have to win the finals this year. If they don't, I think we need to have some conversation. And Tatum heated up the last couple games in the past series, but he has struggled at times in this playoffs. And I think if he goes forward and struggles again, there are going to be a lot of conversations about him. But what I'll say is the Celtics are much better than the Pacers, right? Somebody had to get here, and the Knicks were completely banged up, so the Pacers found a way in. I think you're underrating them a little bit because I think the pace that the Pacers have played with, the ability to kind of increase their tempo on the defensive side of the ball last series showed a lot about this team, but they just have a couple dogs on that team. And my guy, Timothy John McConnell, TJ McConnell, is going to show you, man. Like he is going to make an impact. He's an X factor in the series. Now, will it be enough to help take down a juggernaut Boston team? Probably not. But I do think the Pacers will make it a little more competitive than you're making it out to be. So I'm going to take Celtics, but in 6. I think the Pacers will muscle off a couple wins, but ultimately there was games where Halliburton was hiding on offense in the past series.
When he shoots the ball, he's brilliant.
Honestly, yeah. Like
when he plays with confidence in attack and score first mentality, he's so good because he's such a pass first type of guy.
So good. And I think they need to do a little bit more with Miles Turner, especially if Porzingis is going to be out a couple games, but it feels like sometimes they struggle to get him involved as well. But
especially since Al Horford, since he can lock up Joel Embiid, then he must be able to lock up Miles Turner.
I don't know. It's Celtics. Al Horford is a different breed. I'll give him that. Like he came to Philly and he was a double agent, but here he is with Boston. They're going to need Porzingis back though to win the finals. You agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you got to play Minnesota, I'll put it this way. You got to play Minnesota, you need Porzingis. If you got to play Dallas, we can win that series without Porzingis.
Interesting. So when it comes to the Pacers, like what else are you looking for from Boston in this series? Like what if they come out and they just kind of like just
cruise and just like
they stay afloat and Tatum has a couple bad games and they just kind of limp into the finals? Like how do you feel about that?
I think a win is a win at this point. I think if you're any team at this point to be standing, you're going to take that. As a fan, like there's 26 NBA teams can't say they're here right now, right? And so I'm looking at the Boston Celtics to do their job, which simply means win the series. Nothing more, nothing less. Get it done.
Just get it done.
Because I think the media is so focused on if we don't win it all, it's a failure. And so they expect us to like win every game by 35 points, which I expect us to win every game by 35 points too. But that doesn't mean you have to. There are games where, I don't know, Duke lost to Mercer. How the hell does Duke lose to Mercer? They're like basketball is a crazy sport, especially with the development of the three-point shot. Any team can win. And so the Pacers of any team that the Celtics have played, I'll give you this. Of any team that the Celtics have played this playoffs, they have the best chance against the Celtics because they shoot the ball really well, but they also have a star on the court. You have your superstar. So when Tyrese Halliburton hits a three, it means more than when TJ McConnell hits a floater, respectfully. And that's because when your superstar scores, it's demoralizing. And it creates a momentum. It means he's got our back and we're going to just ride with him. And so, yeah, the Pacers are going to present a problem, but we're going to be there to say, hold on, we have the team to beat that. Because if you're starting Aaron Nesmith, respectfully, you have no chance. He was on our bench a couple of years ago, and he was one of our worst players. And every time that Aaron Nesmith is on the court, that's a liability for the Indiana Pacers. Because guess what? He does not play any defense. No, this is what he plays a little bit of defense. He makes like 1-3 a game. He's actually not very quick, and he sits in the paint. And he when Dante DiVincenzo has made 6 threes, instead of staying home on DiVincenzo, he gets caught out to lunch sitting in the paint because he can't play any defense. That's why we got rid of him. Shout out Aaron Nesmith.
I don't know. Nesmith revenge tour maybe on the way. Look, man, I just think nobody's given the Pacers any type of shot. I don't think anybody will pick them to win. And that's why I'm going to root for them because I like that underdog mentality. Plus, to see them upset Boston would be
That
it
would be
would be
insane.
all world. I mean, I would be
That would
praying
be
for you
insane.
at that point.
I don't know what I would do.
You haven't said much about Jason Tatum. Are you worried about his playoff struggles a bit? Do you think that there's a little bit too much asked of him? Maybe he can't live up to that right now, or maybe he's just letting his teammates, kind of take over when they need to. The Derek Whites, the Jalen Browns of the world, Porzingis when he comes back. How do you feel about Tatum right now?
I think he's playing well. I think he's playing just fine. I think, he's doing pretty much everything he's being asked to do on all ends of the floor, all aspects of the game. He's just not making every shot he takes. He's not, shooting the 3-point rock with like too much consistency right now, but that's going to come in the bigger moments. I promise you, this kid rises. You saw it firsthand in 2 games to end your season last year. His
He also was bad though for 6.5 games.
right, but he rises. Like I don't get it. I don't get it. Sometimes I'm telling you right now, you're gonna watch the first 2 games of this series, and I say he's gonna score 50 points tonight. I say they're gonna win by 25. That's probably what they should do. It's probably what they will do. But there's a world where Tatum is kind of like jogging up and down for the first like two games or 3 games because it's the switch when he flip game 4. Game 3, game 4, and game 5 of the Cavs series, we saw a different Tatum than game 1 and game 2. And that's the switch that he flips. He's just a different player. He turns into LeBron. Because he's
I don't know
6'11".
about that.
He can just drive by everybody. You asked a question. You want me to bring up Tatum? I'll start talking about him.
I'm just wondering how you're feeling about him because
Struggles. I think everyone is talking about Tatum struggling and not being able to shoot the ball well. Do you think it's more struggles, or do you think he's just pacing himself because he's been here before and he wants to act like it?
I think both can be true. I think he was
Yes.
struggling heavily, and I think he took a lot of the noise to heart. And then, like you said, he flipped the switch, and he does have the ability to do that. But if he
to
does
me
struggle,
personally, I don't think he's struggling. I think he is
the numbers
not
show it,
shooting the ball well, but
but
he
just
is still
struggling.
playing good basketball. He's still playing good basketball.
True.
He's not going for 45, but nobody's saying Anthony Edwards struggled in game 7. Everyone's saying Anthony Edwards hit the one shot at the end, and he played a lot of really good defense and made a bunch of steals on Jamal Murray. And nobody talks about how he went, 6 for 24.
I think it's different with Ant because of how generational this run has been for him as a 22-year-old carrying a team. But when it comes to Tatum, I agree. He is impacting the game in other ways. I just think for them to ultimately hold the trophy and be champions, he needs to play better for every game of the series. Like he
The
needs,
Celtics go as far as Jason Tatum takes them.
and
1,000%.
that's exactly my point. Like he has to be the guy. And if he is not, and for some reason the Celtics don't end off as champions,
Mhm.
I think we need to have conversations about Jason Tatum. If he has an inefficient NBA finals or whatever it may be, um, I think now is the time to have conversation. Not saying he can never win, but there has to be a reason. Like the Celtics have a juggernaut of a squad. You
Mhm.
add Drew Holiday, Porzingis, like the time is now. So I do think they'll win the series, but Tatum needs to show me more. I think Jalen Brown needs to continue to show me more. Derek White, all these guys, like they need
Can
to
I
be
be
clicking.
honest?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think any of these teams are close to the Celtics. And I think the media is just trying to put an insane amount of pressure on this Celtics team, which they should. It's well deserved. But there's no competition in front of us. Like
I can't
Indiana is
agree with
not
that.
as good, and Dallas and Minnesota, they're not in the category of this Celtics team, I promise you.
Dallas, maybe. However, I disagree when it comes to Minnesota because that is an example of a team playing their best ball right now. They're
Mhm.
not traditional. You're asking a 22-year-old to lead the way to the NBA finals. That does not happen. But they are built to beat certain teams. And they took down Denver, which I never would have thought happened. And they're just playing as a unit right now. They're almost like Denver in a way, but a different way at the same time.
Yeah.
Every guy on that team sticks to one role, does exactly what they need to do, and they're just meshing right now. I think they could give Boston a threat in the finals.
The difference between Minnesota and Denver was this idea that Minnesota could shoot the three, and Denver really like struggled from three. You see Michael Porter Jr. just melt down in every single game. He could not hit a three to save his life, and maybe he took his unders like his brother. But I'm looking at like the Celtics team compared to Minnesota, and I'm saying the defensive side of the ball, I don't think it's that far off. Like, I get Minnesota's a really good defensive team, but I believe that the Celtics are the most underrated defensive team in basketball. And then you look at offensively, like Minnesota's a good offensive team, but they're hit or miss. The Celtics are too talented offensively to say they're hit or miss. Sure, in a game two, they don't play well, nobody shoots well, and it's a fluke situation. Every other game, even if Tatum's not shooting well or Brown's not shooting well, they probably got 3 or 4 guys that are hitting, you know? Obviously, you need Tatum to go for 35 or to 40 and you win the game. But offensively, the Celtics are just so much better than any team in basketball. The three-point shot and the defense is what they present that Denver did not present. Denver's not scary defensively. They're scary because they have Jokic. They're scary because they have Jamal Murray late in games. He disappeared. Jokic was their only thing, right? They had no shooting. The Celtics have shooting and defense. That's all you need.
I just think I guess like the momentum run that Minnesota has right now is a bit scary for me. And I think they could pose a threat because you don't take down the defending champs down 20 on their home floor in a game 7 and not have any type of steam. Like, they're playing confident as hell right now. And we'll talk about them in a second. I do think that they have liabilities as well. But if there is a team, like, I don't think Dallas can really give Celtics a run for their money. I think Minnesota can. And they were the one team coming into the playoffs I didn't think had any chance. I thought they were a high seed and they were going to, just run into a bad matchup, and they have proved me wrong. So shout out to Minnesota. But let's just jump over to them for 1 second. Dallas, Minnesota, how do you think that series is going to go? What are your main keys there, and what's your prediction?
I mean, Luka could just take over. That's the like thing we gotta think about. Whether Luka Doncic is gonna be healthy enough and locked in enough to play good basketball. He has struggled. Like Tatum, you want to say Tatum struggled? Luka has struggled, and they are here.
He's also injured, though. He's playing through bad injury.
He's playing through bad injuries, so I'm gonna give him that. And that's why, I don't want to talk about Luka Doncic struggling because he has brought the Mavericks in many ways to this point, and he's still hitting shots and still playing to an MVP caliber. He's just struggling a little bit, right? Didn't have a great series against OKC. That's why you got a guy like Kyrie Irving, and they have great role players. Like the Sixers should take a piece out of Dallas's book for how they built their team this offseason, because they got guys. They had dudes. Yeah. They got rid of Grant Williams the second they found out that he wasn't messing with Dallas no more.
It's crazy too. Like the Mavericks, their deadline pickups, right? PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. Look at the Pacers, right? They pick up Siakam. The Celtics picked up Holiday, Porzingis. I agree. Sixers need to take a page out of this playbook and just get the guys that make sense, man.
You never, like, I felt like the Celtics knew last year they were good enough to win it all. They just didn't get it done. And yet they still upgraded. And that's what teams need to do. You can never get too good. You can always get better. You know what I'm saying? There's always another day to just try and get another guy or improve at a spot. And that's all they did this offseason. Just improve your weaknesses. What are the Sixers' weaknesses?
Well, for one, they don't rebound the basketball because they had a 6'8" power forward who doesn't like rebounding. And they need a guy to take pressure off Joel. They need a guy who's going to stay healthy. They need shooting. Pretty much everything around Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, and they have full flexibility to do it.
You could trade up for Donovan Clingan, the big man out of UConn.
They're not trading up. And if they're trading anything, they're trading out of the spot, which they typically do, and they're going to.
What about getting Bronny? Get Bronny and LeBron.
Nah, it's not happening. It's not happening. As much as everybody talks about it, I know we talked about it before, but LeBron's not coming to Philly. It's not happening.
Yeah. Oh well.
But anyway, Mavs Timberwolves. What's your prediction for that series?
I'm gonna say Timberwolves in 7 games because deep down in my heart, I know that if the media wants to be satisfied with the Boston Celtics winning the championship, then it's got to be up against Minnesota. I think the Mavericks are a good opponent, but I've seen that story in many ways. I've seen it in the regular season. They're no match to the Boston Celtics. Minnesota can present something. Minnesota beat Denver. I'll give my flowers to Minnesota, and I'll say, bring me Anthony Edwards. I'm ready for that battle. But at the same time, I mean, like I said earlier, Luka Doncic could have a takeover type of series, and the Mavericks could win this series. It could go either way. I'm gonna just lean with Minnesota in 7.
They definitely could. I'm actually going to go the same prediction, Timberwolves in 7. I think it could swing either way.
Yep.
For once, it's weird. Like, I feel like the role player emphasis is so large in this series because these are not the traditional teams. Like, you have Luka Doncic, who still is pretty young, up and coming, but obviously a generational superstar. And on the other side, you have a 22-year-old superstar who is ready to take over this franchise and lead them to a finals. It's not what we are used to, right? There's no LeBrons, KDs, Currys in the conference finals.
Mm.
And I really feel like it's going to come down to how well the role players play. Like, are you going to get this same level of PJ Washington? Are you going to get Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford? And then on the other side, what about the two big man lineup? Like, are the Timberwolves going to continue to rock with Cat and Rudy Gobert? You know how I feel about Rudy, and I will give him his flowers. He had a really good second half the other night,
It's
but there
trash.
are still some limitations. There's still liability with Rudy and his
Yes.
inability to affect the game offensively for the most part, I think is going to hold the Timberwolves back. Like, he can be as great as he wants defensively. And let's be honest, for 3 games in a row, he was getting cooked by Jokic.
Mhm.
Overall, though, it almost makes me feel like they shouldn't run the 2 big man lineup. Even though the Mavs gave the Thunder trouble with their size, the Timberwolves have to pick and choose their spots, and it's all about getting Ant as comfortable as possible. But again, they have Mike Conley, they have the Jaden McDaniels of the world. They just have guys that win. They have winners, and I just think it's going to be a little bit too much for Dallas. But I agree, it could go either way.
I think I'm reading the chat right now. People are talking shit about you. They're saying Jalen Brunson is nice. They're saying Jalen Brunson is your daddy. And I'm here to tell you right now, the person who said that Jalen Brunson is your daddy, Jalen Brunson at best can be a second option on a championship team. If he's your first option, you will never win a championship. At best, you'll get to an Eastern Conference Finals and get swept by the Boston Celtics with a healthy Knicks.
Yeah, there's still a lot of Knicks fans just kind of like hanging in there and left over. But again, shout out to the Knicks for their season, what they did. But, as a Brunson fan, as a Nova fan, like the way he played in the playoffs, just constantly flopping, it was unbearable. And,
Mhm.
as much as the Knicks talked about this and that and injuries and things like that, it caught up to them as well. So the karma came around, unfortunately, and nobody is healthy. And
Do you,
at the end of the day, they got bounced in the second round. That's all that matters.
do you think Anthony Edwards is going to be able to guard Kyrie Irving? Like, I'm excited for that matchup. How do you feel about that?
I think he's going to give him a good run for his money, but I think Kyrie, and I'll give him credit as well, is just so locked in. He is
Mhm.
one of the most gifted scorers I've ever seen. My knock on Kyrie and why I've said keep him far away from Philly in past years is because he doesn't stay focused on the game. However, they paid him here in Dallas. Seems like he's found a comfortable home and he is locked in. So I'm happy to see him ball, at this stage again with Luka, but I just feel like the Timberwolves have this whole other level that they can kick into defensively. And I think they're going to put a lot of pressure. And I'll give Cat credit too, because he has played exceptionally well.
Yep. They
I
don't win
just
that game without Cat.
absolutely. And it was probably one of the best games I've ever seen him play. I just don't think the Mavs will have answers for those two. I really don't.
Yeah, no, I'm fully in agreement with you. And I'm looking at like Carl Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert, bro. We talk about that liability aspect of it. Rudy Gobert is the biggest liability of anybody. I mean,
I still
teams
don't believe in him. I really
teams
don't.
like when Trace Jackson Davis, well, you know me, I love Trace Jackson Davis and he got drafted by the Warriors, and he fell all the way to 57. And he was such a good player in college. And I'm thinking to myself, why did he fall all the way to 57? And why didn't a team like the Celtics, who are championship ready, not trying to draft a guy like Trace Jackson Davis, who's a 23-year-old ready to win big? That's something you need. We got Luke Cornett as our backup. And then it hit me. He can't shoot the three. Why wouldn't you be? Why wouldn't you? You have to build with guys who can shoot the three in today's game. Like, you can't go any other route. That's why Rudy Gobert. And Rudy Gobert, bro, he looks like the big man that was on my team in 6th grade travel who had no fundamentals, but he was the 5th grader that was just taller than everybody and hit puberty a little early. So he was like 6'5", and we're all like 5'2". You know what I'm saying? That's what Rudy Gobert looks like. The way he dribbles the basketball. Get out of here, bro. You are not an NBA player. Sit on the bench.
I think it's going to come back to haunt them when they play a better team. Like,
you can't play Boston with Rudy Gobert.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, the switches that Boston can implement, and just to, trap Anthony Edwards. Like, we saw it at times in the Nuggets series. Like, there was even that audio clip where Ant's like, yo, move, get out of my way, because you're just essentially clogging the paint at that point. And I think Boston can throw these delayed traps at Ant and throw him off balance. And if Rudy's the guy that's going to pop out and roll to the basket or sit in the dunker spot, like, he's got to have some kind of bag. And I just feel like he doesn't at this stage, which is why I still think that trade was a mistake. They have played well defensively, but can that carry you all the way to a championship? Maybe with that roster structured the way it is, but I don't know. I'm not sold yet.
I mean, the Dallas Minnesota series is definitely going to be the better series. I'm excited for the Celtics series. And
don't sleep on TJ, man. TJ is going. I hope they put him on Tatum or Drew Holiday, and I hope he feasts.
I'm sad because we didn't get to see Tatum guard Jokic, because that's what it was going to have to be when Al Horford was getting cooked. It was going to have to be Tatum or Brown.
I mean, Denver would have beat Boston, in my opinion. I'm surprised that they choked the way that they did, and I think
it would have been a tougher opponent than Minnesota or Dallas, 1,000%.
I think it needs to be talked about more, because everybody's talking about
nobody's saying shit about Jokic, bro.
Yeah, I think people are not putting into, I guess, reality the fact that the Nuggets did beat a team of Jimmy Butler and high schoolers last year that took out your Celtics, and they come back this year and they choked. They lost game 6 by 45, and then they lost game 7 after being up by 20 at home. Like, that needs to be talked about more, but people are just going to give them a pass because of what they did last year, which I understand. Nuggets are still a great team, but
it's the Giannis rule.
You choke.
It's the Giannis rule where he wins a championship. He's been bounced out of the first round for what? How many years in a row now? He hasn't been back to the Eastern Conference Finals. We're like,
injuries.
Hey Giannis, where you been, bro? Like, Embiid's been doing all right. I mean, y'all haven't been to the East Finals, but you took Boston to 7 games in a second round matchup last year. You get banged up this year, building blocks. I expect Philly to be the team to beat next year outside of Boston. Give me a break about New York. But Giannis, what are you doing?
Yeah, and he's been injured 2 years in a row, and people like to only use the injury card when it comes to Joel Embiid, but I agree, man. They're
just give it a couple of years with Denver, and if they're not winning consistently, like if they get bounced in the first round next year, or if they lose in the second round again, people are going to start saying Mickey Mouse championship. I've been saying that because I didn't buy it. I saw Steph Curry absolutely cook Nikola Jokic in a first round matchup. And then 1 year later, we're all talking about Jokic is the greatest basketball player of all time, and then beats an 8 seed Miami Heat. Like, give me a break. Tatum and the Celtics would have cooked y'all. Shouldn't have choked.
It is crazy that people are making those comparisons, calling him the greatest player and things like that, when he just hasn't done enough yet. So he's a great player, but he hasn't done enough yet. And I think, like you said, like Denver has to make a resurgence next year. If not, then we have to have some conversations. But listen, man, overall, the playoffs have gone a lot differently than I think anybody expected. We're going to have a new champion for the 6th straight year. And we have a 22-year-old in the conference finals. Luka's 25. Jason Tatum is young. Like, Tyrese Halliburton is young. Like, this is just a new type of experience for NBA fans. I think it's good to have this new blood and not have some of the, recurring LeBrons, KDs, Currys, etc. But it also just does feel very different. And I don't know. I don't know what to expect. These playoffs have thrown me for a loop. That Wolves Nugget series had the most momentum shifts I've ever seen in a series.
Yep.
To win 2 on the road, then lose 3 in a row, then come back and win 2. It doesn't make sense. So anything can happen. The Pacers may win in 6. The Pacers
Literally,
may win in
no. I
6.
mean, the Miami Heat had a 3% chance. People they continue to remind me for the rest of the time. We had a 97% chance to win that series last year. So
Right.
do not count anything out in life, period. I mean, this has definitely been a weird playoffs, and it's sad to not see Steph, KD, LeBron doing their thing. And I kind of hope that like all of them find at least competitive teams to like play for 3 to 5 more years with. I mean, LeBron probably more on the 2 to 3 year mark, but surround Steph with a good player in Golden State. I know we've talked about this in previous time, but there's got to be a guy that can join Steph Curry and actually help Golden State get back, because Klay Thompson cannot be a second option. He can be a third option. Draymond Green cannot be a second option. He can be a third option. So, it's sad to see those guys not being here, but dude, I'm looking at the face of the league and I'm saying it's up for grabs. I'm saying which guy gonna get it. And I know everyone's gonna say if the Celtics win that Tatum had the better team of everybody. And I'm like, but who cares? Because we always say the Celtics go as far as Tatum takes them. So it's about Tatum. It's about Ant Edwards. It's about Luka. It's about Tyrese Halliburton. We can't forget about him. And I think it's comical that people say that Jason Tatum of the 4, that like his reasoning for being the better player, like whenever you rank the 4, everyone's like, well, Ant, he has the potential. He looks like Michael Jordan. Luka Doncic is a specimen, the European guy, slow, but like MVP caliber guy. And Jason Tatum has experience. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I mean, he has experience, but he's 26 years old. How is that your reasoning for it? Like, that's the rarity of who Jason Tatum is. This kid who is 26 years old. People say his biggest strength is experience. That's a beautiful thing at the age of 26. And that gets so underappreciated for Jason Tatum.
Well, that's because he's been thrown into an organization that drafts well, develops well, and they constantly surround him with good talent. Now, that's not a knock at him, but it is a truth, right? Like,
The right
you have to
pieces.
perform.
It's not necessarily, they're not building super teams. It's not like we got Kevin Durant. Now we're not making those type of trades. We are getting really good players to surround to help Tatum and Brown. Since
Correct.
drafting Brown and since drafting Tatum, it's been about how can we help Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown be Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen.
That's what any organization should do.
That's
But
what the
it
Denver
also
Nuggets did. That's what Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green were to Golden State.
exactly, but now the Celtics have to win, and if
Yes,
they
it's
don't,
now. Yes, now.
they have to win. If not, I will be saying many things about Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, everybody on the Celtics, because like this is your opportunity. It's never been handed to you like this on a silver platter. But
Yeah,
I
but
the T-Wolves
yes.
are coming, man.
All right, I'm not gonna hedge my bets. Yes, 1000%. But it's not. You don't play the like when they do win, and I'm not saying to you. I'm saying to the media. Like when they win, just give them their flowers, because respectfully, y'all have been way too critical of a team that truly has shown nothing but brilliance night in night out all season. And this has been a buildup since Tatum and Brown were drafted, but more importantly, the last 3 years. And ever since they lost that game to Golden State in game 6, this has been about getting back, right? And we're here, get it done. No excuses. I understand.
I agree with that. I still think they have missed some opportunities, but now you have the greatest opportunity of them all. So you have to come out and get it done, right? Like regular season is what it is at this point. You got to show up in the playoffs in the biggest moments. And
Do you think they will?
Here, huh?
Like you say Pacers in 6 jokingly. Do you
No, I
deep
said
down in your
Celtics.
heart, you think the Celtics get it done?
Yeah, I said Celtics in 6 earlier. I think they win this series. If they play the Timberwolves, I think that'll be a really, really dogfight type of series.
What gives Boston the advantage in that series in your eyes? Or does
The
Minnesota have the
liability
advantage?
of Rudy offensively, and if they get Porzingis back, just his ability to play at all 3 levels, to be able to stretch the floor. If the Celtics get going and, they're knocking down shots like crazy and just having the ultimate glue guy with a guy like Drew Holiday, they just have the experience. Like, they have
Mhm.
players who have been there before, like, that
Yeah.
understand the moment, where I think Minnesota is just the newbie to the squad, and as good as Ant is, he is only 22 years old. So,
Yes.
I
And
think that's what puts the ball in the court of Boston, but I just think with the momentum that the T-Wolves have and the size and just the ability to do a lot of different things on offense and just kinda swing a game, I think it does pose a bit of a threat to Boston, if I'm being completely honest.
a chat just said, "I'd like to see the Sixers move to another city."
Yeah, there's a lot of Sixer haters, a lot of trolls. I mean, it is what it is.
So far this year, don't forget the Pacers in 6-0 at home. Yeah, I mean, we haven't been tested, but like I said, bro, I said it earlier in the show, the battle tested aspect of it, like that, you cannot bring up that argument. We've been here before. We've been battle tested all
I agree
year.
with that. They just haven't gotten it done before, so they have to get it done now.
Yeah,
That's my opinion.
I agree. I agree.
Anyway, man, appreciate you coming on. It was nice to just switch it up a little bit, talk about the playoffs and get some
Yeah.
outside perspective and insight. Let the people know where they can find you, man.
It's right up there. Jack Cote 1 on Instagram, Jack Cote 30 on TikTok. And man, it's been an honor to talk to you. And I'm excited because I think the future is bright for the NBA. Like this year, we talked about how the Celtics path, they didn't get to play Jimmy Butler healthy. They didn't get to play Giannis healthy. They didn't get to play Joel Embiid healthy. I'm thinking next year, I've simulated it on 2K. We're going to play the Heat with Jimmy Butler. We're going to play the Sixers with Joel Embiid. We're going to play the Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo, bearing all trades and craziness in the offseason. But the Eastern Conference will be back to form next year just because, injuries happen. And I think players get stronger and those guys will be ready to go next year.
Hope Daryl Morey and the Sixers are watching these playoffs, looking at what these teams have done to rebuild in a couple years. And this is the biggest offseason of all time for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Let's
And
go, baby.
it is time to get them back and restore them to a competitive level. So we'll see if it happens. Jack, appreciate you coming on. We'll see what happens in these playoffs, and hopefully we can hop back on and do this again. And we'll see what happens with Boston, man. But that being said, appreciate everybody tapping in. Be sure to like the show and share it around. You guys have a great rest of your night. Catch you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.